I see how powerful and how all in I was on my dreams. And me talking to a lot of people that as a mentor, I mentor people, and now talking to so many different people that have that limiting belief in themselves. Like they're not really all in on their dreams.
What is up, everybody? We are here, episode 98 of Scorch the Fears. I have Raphael Vargas here. He is a really cool guy. I found him on Instagram. He's doing all sorts of stuff. I loved his content, so I thought I'd DM him and be like, hey, what? You want to come on the podcast? He said yes. It's been awesome. Really chill dude to be communicating with. I really wanted to know his story. And yeah, I'm really glad to have you on, my man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. I feel very welcome, Jonah. You've been doing incredible things in your podcast, so thank you for having me here.
I love it. And real quick, to anyone who's on Instagram, come on to YouTube. That's where you're actually be able to hear Raphael. It'll be a lot easier to actually hear what's going on than just looking at me, but I want you guys to come on to YouTube. So real quick, Raphael, tell me a little bit, just for my audience, just for the people that don't know you, give them like a quick resume of just like your bio in real estate, what you do, any other entrepreneurial journeys, and anything like that, just real quick.
Yeah, man. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've done many different things, everything from real estate, e-commerce, online digital sales, education, massive events, selling from stage, done a lot of different things. And I'm just a servant for God. The most important thing is I'm a servant for God, and I just listen and I follow to God's direction in my life. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of failures. I come from, I got kicked out of high school when I was 15 years old, 16, 15 years old. Never went to college. Everyone thought I would never make it. I was just a dirty young kid that had just a dream to become a millionaire and take care of my mother and my brother, who's actually in upstairs in the home with me right now. And that was just my dream. It was just a simple dream, just to take care of them. And from there, I started in real estate wholesaling. I went to real estate wholesaling. I became one of the largest real estate wholesalers in the entire nation, where I flipped now over 1,000 real estate investment transactions. I purchased.
Woo-wee.
Yeah, man. I've done commercial real estate, single family real estate, and that transitioned me into educating people and teaching them how to become millionaires and multimillionaires like myself in real estate, where at my peak, we're flipping 50 houses a month. And yeah, I just became very passionate about educating people and helping them become successful themselves. And that's where, the rest of my career took off.
I love it. I love it a lot, man. So I want to start at the beginning. This is what I do with all my guests. And I told you this before the podcast, but I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, what I've noticed in my journey in real estate investing is that what screws people up the most, especially at the beginning, is not being able to get over their own fears. Not getting their own fears of being inadequate, not getting over their fears of thinking they can't do it, whatever it might be. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to help people get over fears. So let's go all the way back to when you were starting in real estate, just starting to wholesale. What fears did you have and how did you overcome them?
Man, I had a lot of fears. Man. I was starting in my mother's basement. My mother was, working two different jobs, trying to support myself and my brother, who's mentally disabled. And, it was very, very difficult. And not graduating from high school, not having a college education, everyone made me feel like I was inadequate in every single sense of the word. And I myself felt inadequate. I tell my friends when I wanted to go into real estate investing, I heard about this real estate wholesaling thing. I think I could become, make 100,000 a year doing it. And they laughed at me. They said, Raphael, you'll never become successful. You'll never flip a property. I told my mother that, hey, Mom, I think I'm going to, just quit my job and just go all in on this real estate investing thing. She got so angry at me. She said, Raphael, you will never be successful. You will never become a real estate investor. I told my sister the same thing. I mean, my whole community. I remember going into a job because I was like, you know what, maybe I should start as, an apprentice and get a job at a real estate investment firm. And I remember going to that job And they were just pretty much laughing me out of the interview, saying, a kid like you, no education, you were not articulate in any capacity, you had no communication skills, no sales skills, you will never become successful in real estate investing. And I will never forget that day when they laughed me out of the office. I went into my car and I began weeping, crying, because I felt so inadequate. I felt like the entire world was telling me, Raphael, no, 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 no. And the only thing that truly kept me strong and confident with knowing belief, unwavering faith, was my relationship with God. I felt like every time I went back into my mother's basement and it was just me and God. And even though the whole world was telling me no, my mom, my friends, my society, the job I tried to apply for, I felt like God in my heart was telling me, yes, yes, keep going. Don't stop. Keep going. Don't stop. Every time I cold called somebody and they told me no and they hung up on me, don't stop. Keep calling. Go harder. Read more. Watch more YouTube videos. Keep educating yourself. Keep disciplining yourself. And, I just remember this intensity of continuously reading my Bible and just being so dumb to just believe words on a book. And being so stupid to believing just words on a book turned into unwavering faith. And that unwavering faith completely, dynamically changed my entire belief about fear. I became a fearless man, because no matter what the world told me, when I went back downstairs in my basement, when I went back to the Bible, when I went back to prayer, I kept hearing yes. And so even though no one saw what I saw, God saw it. And I think that that's the key to my success in every aspect. The key to my success is my faith in God. And that's what's been able to overcome countless amount of fears. And now walking with God for now, 12 years, because I was an atheist for pretty much my whole life until I almost got murdered. That's a whole nother story. And I remember God saving my life. And since walking with God for 12 years now, it has just created a monster. I mean, this level of faith and fearlessness and strength and confidence and purpose created an absolute monster in me, and has led me to make, not only $50 million in my career plus, but been able to ridiculously, radically change countless people's lives as well in the process.
I love it so much, dude. By the way, I don't know who the hell said you couldn't communicate. That was one of the most powerful intros I've ever had to the podcast. That was sick. I want to talk about faith a little bit then, because my question I wrote down was, how do you deal with your loved ones telling you no? And obviously the answer is God for you. How you talked about just for like 5 seconds, you talked about a really emotional experience to you was that you almost got murdered, and that made you believe in God, or it sounded like that. I might be wrong about that. We don't necessarily have to talk about that, but my question to you is, how do you create a relationship with God that's that powerful? You speak powerfully. Like, I feel it when you're speaking, right? I can tell you're a guy who's made $50 million, right? How does one do that? How does one create that relationship with God? And then let's start there. That's going to be my first question. Like, how do you start even with someone who maybe is dealing with that, having people who are the most close loved ones to you telling you can't do it. You can't even make 100,000, let alone $50 million, right? How do you even start building that relationship?
That's a phenomenal question. And, for me, the way you build a relationship with God is by simply asking one simple question, which is why. And that's where my relationship with God started, right? When I almost got murdered at 18, it was a miraculous event that there was no other explanation other than God saved my life. I mean, I was a complete atheist. I was hanging out with gangbangers, and even the environment was just full of gangbangers. And that's how I almost got murdered. And how I got saved, there was only one answer, and that was God. And that's immediately when I started believing, like, okay, God, you clearly saved my life. Why? Why am I here? Why am I breathing? Why am I alive? Why did you choose me to continue to live? And I really believe that that is the most powerful question somebody can ask themselves, right? John Maxwell says there's two most powerful days of your life: the day you were born and the day you find out why you were born. And I became obsessed at the age of 18 after almost getting murdered, and then watching the man that tried to kill me and my family end up getting murdered himself, and watching this entire ridiculous series of events leading me to, why did this happen? And from 18 to 20, from obsessively asking this question of why am I here? Why am I breathing? I didn't find the answer immediately. And I think a lot of people think that, as soon as you're like, okay, God, I'm going to believe in you, you're just immediately full of wisdom, you're enlightened, and that's it. And that's not my
Correct.
experience. My experience was a journey, 2 years of obsessively asking myself this question of why am I here? And I think that everybody can start there, because if you're breathing today, there is a purpose for you right now. If you are breathing and you woke up today, God is not finished with you. I truly believe there's a purpose for every single person that's watching this live, that's watching this right now. There's a purpose in your life. And you need to ask yourself, why am I here? Right. And it's not just to pay the bills and, and just, watch Netflix on the weekends and, go on vacation one time a year. Right. There's a lot more meaning to life. God wants to use you as a vessel to radically impact and change other people's lives. He wants to use you. So you need to understand what that why is. And when you understand what that why is, you live in power. I'm speaking powerfully and I'm speaking articulately because I've read 250 different books now and watched countless YouTube videos and countless mentorships, over $1 million in mentors that I've had for myself. And so I knew that my why was to impact millions of lives, right? Create millions of leaders, give hundreds of millions of dollars away, and to dominate businesses and dominate industries, right? That's my why, those three things. So every single day, I need to make sure that every minute of my day is allocated towards those three things. No degeneracy, no smoking weed, no alcohol, none of this nonsense. And so I have to really lock in on those three things. And that's how you start building a relationship with God, is asking yourself, why am I here? And God will communicate that and seek that and give it to you.
I love it. I love that answer so much. So you start by how it starts, or how you would recommend for people to start, is by asking yourself, why am I here? Why did God put me on this earth? What was the point? Like, there's a reason, right? Like, when you believe in God, there's definitely a reason for existing. So then, does God just give you the answer in that moment? Do you have to think about it? Like, is it something that just comes to you? I'm just curious, in the sense that I've talked to a lot of people, for instance, who say they have a why, but it's like a very kind of superficial why.
Mm.
Like, I know people whose whys is the Lambo, right? Which, at least in my opinion, that's not going to get you there, right? That's not going to really. That's not going to be. It's just too hard. In entrepreneurship, it's too hard for you to be solely motivated by the Lambo in order to get there. Maybe there are some people who do it. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'm just curious, like, what was that conversation like with God, of like understanding your why? If you can share that with us.
Yeah, I think it is a continuous journey, continuously. Like, even to this day, this is the reason why every morning I wake up and I journal and I spend 30 minutes to an hour with God every morning, because my why for the day is very complex. There are decisions that have to be made continuously. And so I must ground myself every single morning. So what I do is something called abiding, right? And this is what I recommend for everybody to do, to learn how to find that why. Because yeah, a Lamborghini is absolutely, it's not a why, right? It's not a why at all. So what I recommend is, this is what I do every single morning. I have a journal and I find a Bible verse that relates with me for the day. I find a Bible verse that relates with me for that day, something that really ties in with me. So for example, I'll find a Bible, if I'm fearful, maybe I find a Bible verse like, a Bible verse that relates specifically to fear. And what I'll do is I will write that Bible verse down and I will just journal. And I'll say, God, help me understand my fear, right? Help me overcome this fear. help me understand how to overcome these things. And that's what I do every single morning. And that's what's been able to help me from 18 to 20. I didn't know what my why specifically was. I started asking, but I wasn't revealed it. I was not revealed it. I just started going to a church. I didn't even know what church really, like, I didn't know what church to go to. I just went to the closest one near my house. And I was like, man, like, I went to a Catholic church, wasn't really for me. Went to a Christian church, and I really felt more connected in that sense. And then I just picked up my Bible and I just started reading these words of empowerment that really helped me get more confident in myself and become a better man personally. And yeah, these things, sorry, I'm just looking at my laptop. And these were the things specifically, that helped me find out what my why was, right? Just going to church, reading my Bible, and it just becomes a progressive revelation. It is not something that just gets dropped. It is something that is a progressive revelation. But if you truly, truly obsessively look for it, it will come to you. It will be revealed.
Sorry, I muted myself. I love it, man. I just love that I love hearing different people's ways of dealing with fear. I've interviewed a lot of people who are religious and God-fearing men, and it's really interesting hearing your ways of doing it. I personally have more of like a universe ethic in the sense, but I actually do read the Bible every weekend. I read the Bible because there is something to it. There's definitely something to reading that book specifically, where I read it, I'm like, man, that like connected with me and connected with whatever I was dealing with in that moment. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that. I think that was super useful for the audience. Something I wanted to talk about, I really wanted to get into the idea of faith now too. This whole podcast might be about this because I love this topic. I think faith is one of the most important things, especially when you're starting out, because you don't actually have the evidence in front of you right at this moment that you can do even a real estate deal, right? That you can even make 100K, right? You don't have like the physical evidence that you can do it, but having that faith in God, in yourself, faith in whatever you need to get you through it, and then you start building up that evidence of like, okay, I've done this, now I think I can do this, now I think I can do this, now I think I can do this, right? And so yeah, I just love it because I agree with you. I think that faith is super duper important throughout the entire process, just having faith that, in God or in whatever you believe. So I just wanted to reverberate that back to you. So I want to get a little bit more into your journey real quick, because I also want to know more about you too. You started with wholesaling. How did you find out about wholesaling? And then how did you find out about it? And then when you were having this whole, crisis with like all your family, and then saying you can do it, and then also just dealing with having to learn that relationship with God at the same time. What was it like? Like, how did you learn about wholesaling? And then what was it like being a beginner wholesaler?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult becoming a beginner wholesaler, especially when I was starting in 2013 is when I started wholesaling. It was very, very difficult. And, the way I found out about it, I was working a dead end job. I was making about $12 an hour. And this gentleman came in. It was a dental office. I was a dental assistant. And this gentleman came in and he was getting veneers, and he was spending, I think, $30,000 on veneers. And at that time, I'm like, oh my gosh, $30,000 on teeth. And this guy was driving like a 7 Series, BMW. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, success. And I asked him, and I'm like, hey man, like, what do you do? And he said, yeah, I do real estate wholesaling. And I said, dude, can you teach me? Can you teach me? And at the job, I'm literally asking him this. And he's like, no, dude, I'm not going to teach you. Like, deal with my stuff. And, I'm out. And he left. And I don't know if this was legal or not, but I took his information from the database and I got his number. His name was Kenny. Shout out to Kenny. And, I called him and I said, hey, dude, my name is Raphael. I'm the guy from the dental office. Dude, can you teach me? And he's like, dude, what the hell? No. He's like, no, I told you again. And I just started bothering him and texting him so much that eventually he was like, you know what, bro? If you give me $5,000, okay. He's like, I'll teach you wholesaling, no problem. And I remember I had like $1,800 maybe to my name, maybe $2,000 to my name. And I had to sell everything I had. I had like Jordan shoes. At the time, I wanted to become a music producer. I sold all my music equipment immediately. And I came up with that 5,000. I think I got up like $4,000. And I'm like, hey, dude, like, I got 4,000. Does that work? And he's like, all right, whatever. And he just took it. And that was my entire net worth. And, you know, me as a mentor now, I see how powerful and how all in I was on my dreams. And me talking to a lot of people that as a mentor, you know, I mentor people, and now talking to so many different people that have that limiting belief in themselves. Like they're not really all in on their dreams. You know, like one of my masterminds, for example, here in my Miami house, it's $20,000, right? It's $20,000, you know, but I've helped people become multimillionaires. So I feel like it's a good trade. And so, you know, $20,000 for 3 months of consulting, 2 days. And, you know, we got guys with 100K in their bank and they're like, oh man, like it's, I don't know. And they're working their job, they've saved it. And it's like, when are you going to really believe in yourself? You have to believe in yourself. And that was me. And I literally put my whole net worth on the line for this. And that's what radically changed my life. The problem was he spent about 2 hours with me about wholesaling and then blocked me and ignored me. And so it was even more
Oh
difficult.
no.
Yeah, it was even more difficult because now my mom was like, you see, you got scammed. Everyone's telling me I got scammed. The worst idea ever. I lost all this money. So it became just immensely difficult for me in my life because I quit my job. I lost all that money. And it was just an incredibly difficult journey. So as a beginner wholesaler, you know, you really have to work. You have to work. I think there's so much information now, you know, online, but back then there really wasn't. So I had to figure things out. You know, it took me 9 months from the beginning of my, you know, deciding to do real estate wholesaling to closing my first deal. 9 months of no pay, of consistent no's. You know, I remember going literally 3-4 days with zero sleep, you know, no sleep, waking up at 5 a.m. like as a continuous routine, reading sales books, you know, looking in the mirror and like mastering the art of communication and mastering the art of tonality and voice inflections and learning how to deepen my voice and all these things that I had to learn and master. The biggest thing that I think wholesalers miss on is learning how to master the art of sales and communication. You know, if you master that art, you can crush it real estate wholesaling. You know, that is one of the most important pieces to real estate investing overall is sales and communication. And that's going to transcend to all aspects of your life. Picking the right spouse or husband, really spouse, picking, you know, getting more sales in any type of business practice. You become valuable. And even if you're an employee, you become even more valuable to your, you know, to your employer. And so, you know, that I think that real estate wholesaling starting off is extremely difficult, but now there's so much free information on YouTube. Go become a YouTube addict. Watch as much as you can, but don't just watch and educate yourself. Implement from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 8 p.m. to freaking 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or like me, sometimes it was till 8 a.m. the next day. I'm working on myself. I'm reading books. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm studying and personally developing myself. So don't just go out and do the work and don't personally develop in yourself. And also, don't get confused that strictly focused on personally developing and watching content is going to actually warrant you deals. You have to do both. You have to actually get in the trenches. I remember I was calling from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., literally nonstop. I would fast during those hours. So I was just nonstop dialing and dialing and dialing to maximize my time. And so that's what you have to do as a beginner real estate wholesaler.
That's such a crazy story. That's so annoying and terrible that he just took your money. That's so whack. But talk to me about that moment because that for me, that would be a despair moment, right? Like I'd be like, fuck. Like, right? Like I actually took a gamble like that myself with a guy. I don't know if you know Jamil Damji. He's like my mentor. He does like astro flipping. He's a wholesaler. But besides the point, he was a great mentor, amazing mentor. I had to pay him even though I didn't have any money. I used a credit card, but that would have crushed me in a lot of ways if I just got scammed. So like I'm assuming the answer was your relationship with God was how you just were like, no, like I have that fire. I am going to figure this out. But I'm also curious if you feel like giving, in a weird way, I'm curious if you feel like giving that 4K actually might have contributed to your success because A, it forced you to commit, and B, you're like, all right, now I really have to figure it out. So I just want your opinion on that whole situation. Like in a weird way, do you feel like it helped with your success having to give all of it up and almost getting nothing for it?
Yes, I think the most important thing and the key component of success and character in a man or woman is resourcefulness, right? It forced me to become extremely resourceful. And if you want to become a millionaire or a billionaire, you must master the art of resourcefulness, meaning there is nothing in your fingertips utilizing anything that you have around you, any resource that you have around you, utilizing these resources, even if they're the bare minimum, and turning them into something. And that is what God wanted, and absolutely, man, when I lost that money, dude, I was cursing God. I wanted to kill this guy. I was still on my street stuff. I'm like, man, we're just going to go to his house and, I'm losing my mind. Right. So I was in no way like calm about the situation. I was like, God, how dare you? I can't believe you. Why would you do this? You told me to do this. But, every time you look at things in retrospect, those terrible, terrible moments in your life, every single time in retrospect, you look at it and you're like, you know what? I would do it again. Those terrible moments in your life, remember every single one of those moments now in retrospect, you're like, damn, I would do it again because you understand that you needed to go through those things. I had to get robbed. I had to lose my entire net worth. I had to completely go back to zero so that God can say, I'm going to teach you the mastery of resourcefulness. I'm going to build in you a resourceful character that no matter if you have no shirt on your back, you are going to figure this out. And that character trait was more valuable than $4,000. It's more valuable than $100 million because you can turn $0 into $100 million with character traits of resourcefulness. And so, yeah, I absolutely, at the time, I was, like I said, I was cursing God, I was cursing everyone. But now looking back in retrospect, it was absolutely what was needed.
I love it. And then this just gets into a topic that I will always love talking about, and I think I really want to educate people on, and it gets into it is just how do you vet the people you're learning from? I can already tell you're a type of person who's willing to pay for education if it means you're able to triple or double or quintuple your investment, right? I'm the same type of way. I think every successful entrepreneur is that way, right? But how do you vet a mentor, or how do you vet someone to make sure you're not getting scammed, make sure it's not like a guru who hasn't done it in 20 years, right? How do you vet mentors and people that you're learning from so you make sure that you're not learning trash or be going to get scammed?
That's a great question. Two ways. One way is obviously like, your mentor being like, hey, open up your bank account. Like, what you got cooking, right? How much revenue did you do? What are you doing? Right? Like if I open up my accounts, you can see, millions of dollars going through in a month in multiple different businesses, right? That's only one way though. And I think that that's not the best way to vet a mentor, honestly, because I know a lot of mentors or people that make a lot of money, but they're not good mentors. They don't know how to educate you on
Right.
how to do what they do. And so that's why I say there's only one part of that. The other part, and I think the more important part, is what's their track record with mentees, right? What is their track record with mentees? How many successful millionaires have you created? And I think that that is a much more powerful way to really vet a mentor because, for example, I can call countless people that are now millionaires and even multimillionaires that have gone through my real estate education training, that have gone through one of my masterminds, that have gone through my intense one-on-one coaching, whatever it is, and they're multimillionaires and they can open up their bank accounts and be like, yeah, man, like my life changed completely. And, I can't take all the credit, right? I just show people the way. They got to do the work. So those people did the work. They followed my guidance. And I think that that's the best way to vet a mentor, honestly.
I like it. That 100% makes sense. Talk to how are the mentees doing, right?
Right.
And this is like my little tidbit on it is also do you connect with the mentor, right? I think there are even people who are really good mentors for certain people, but not good for others, depending on your personality, depending on whether you connect on like just a life basis. Like, do you have the same values and stuff like that, right? So I just wanted to throw that in there because I think it's super important. I think there's a lot of people who scam people, and yeah, so I just wanted to throw in like that's a really good way of vetting a mentor. My man, I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast. Guys, if for the people watching right now, comment in here, say how much you appreciate Raphael for coming on and all the absolute gold you've been dropping. To be honest, it's been an absolute fire podcast. I've been loving it. Where can people find you? Where can people reach out to you? What is there anything you'd like to promote? Like, what are like the avenues for people to get in contact with you, and what else do you want to promote?
Yeah, just follow me on my social media. I'm most active on Instagram at Real Raphael Vargas. Follow me on Instagram. You'll see absolutely all of my, promotions and everything that I offer right there at Real Raphael Vargas. So make sure to follow me there. I'm starting a podcast as well, the Real and Raw podcast. So we're starting one up there. So make sure you follow the Real and Raw podcast as well. And yeah, just follow me on social. You'll see everything that we got going on.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If you've got time, chill for a minute after. If you don't, I totally understand either way. But all right, guys, that's episode 98. We are freaking in it. Next week, I'm going to be in Phoenix. So it's going to be, I'm not sure if it's going to be the regular time for the podcast. So I'm not 100% sure. But next week, guys, you guys should watch Real Estate Disruptors with Steve Trang. I'm going to be his guest for next week. And then also, hopefully, I'm going on Wholesale Hotline, which will be cool, which I know a lot of my audience knows these podcasts. So go on there. I'll be posting a bunch of stuff. And Raphael, thank you so much, bro. You've been an absolute pleasure. And with that, I'm ending the podcast. Let's freaking go.